All right, family, it is conference time.
It's that
You've been
time.
emailing us and asking us, when are you guys opening registration? And registration is now open.
Right now.
Culture Proof Conference 2025 is now currently accepting your registration. And they're coming in. Like, I'm so super excited to see
Yes.
multiple generations of families just registering for the conference. The theme this year is Worthy of It All.
We have some great speakers, as always, that will minister to the entire family.
Yes.
And so I'm really excited about the breakout sessions.
Oh my
That was
goodness.
something that we were able to do this past conference, and it was a hit, man. It was
Yes.
great. It was great. And we have some things planned for this year. And so
Yes.
go to cultureproof.net and you'll be able to see the lineup of speakers. You'll be able to see breakout sessions, different things, details about this year's conference.
That's right. The theme revolves around the fact that Jesus is worthy to be exalted, that
Yes.
Jesus is worthy, that he should go public through us in every aspect, every area of our lives. And so to that end, we are leaving no stone unturned
That's
as
right.
we talk about what is happening in the culture and how we can best reflect that Jesus is worthy of it all. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. We're going to be talking about what's happening in geopolitics. Like, what does this mean for the
Yes.
return of Christ? We're going to be talking about purity. What about fall after fall of pastors in our churches today? What in the world is going on? Or as we
Yes.
like to ask, what in the church is going on? So we're going to talk about how do we engage? How do we equip our kids to stand? How do
Yes.
we live faithful lives for the glory of God in 21st century America? We've got 10 keynotes, 6 breakouts to choose from, 2 lunch and learns where you've got to register for that early because space is
Yes.
limited, especially if you want to choose your lunch options. You've got to check that out. We don't want to waste your time. We want you to be
Not at
blessed
all.
and we want you to leave equipped.
And as always, a highlight is our children's track. We
That's
have
right.
the Culture Proof kids and teens, and your children will be ministered to. And so it's just going to be a great time for the family.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's always a great time to gather with the family of God, to be equipped and to be encouraged. If you've got any questions, you can get those answered by going to cultureproof.net. That's cultureproof.net. Culture Proof 2025 happens June 19th through the 21st. We're in the same location. That's Faith Baptist Church in Bartlett, Tennessee. Hopefully, we will see you in just a few short months. A well-known Memphis pastor is shot in the early hours of the morning while at a bar. Michelle Obama and her brother are co-hosting a podcast, and teacher, pastor, leader Steve Lawson finally breaks his silence on the affair that rocked his family and the Christian community as a whole. This is the weekend news haul where we are kind of catching you up on some of the stories that you may have missed this week. Thanks for checking out Culture Proof.
Every single stronghold, we pull them down. Yeah.
All right, this is Culture Proof. I'm Miki.
And I'm Will.
And this is the weekend news haul where we're taking a look at some of those stories that, I don't know, maybe they came across your desk and maybe they didn't. They certainly came across ours. But in our planning and looking at stories in a long form sense, some of them we don't actually get to. And so we wanted to have a conversation just around some of these interesting news headlines. I will tell you, there was a really interesting news headline that is probably not going to make the weekend news haul.
Okay.
It should. It's not going to make it because I think I want to unpack it a little bit longer after talking to you about it.
Okay.
And that is some very dear podcasters being kicked out of NRB.
Yeah.
Stay close. That may be a liver. That may be one where we just kind of go live because like I can't even imagine. And there's so much woven into that just like I feel like it needs a show all by itself.
Yeah,
that's how I feel.
I agree.
So before we get into content today, I want to say a huge thank you to the premier sponsor of the Culture Proof podcast. That's BJU Press Homeschool. You guys hear us talking about BJU all the time. This is what we trust. This is the curriculum that we trust with the hearts of our children. When our kids are being educated, please understand that education is not neutral. All education communicates a worldview. And the question is, will it be a biblical worldview or a secular worldview? Which is why we choose BJU Press Homeschool, because we want our kids to have a biblical worldview. We want their education to see at the core and to have as its source one book that presents the final authority on all issues. The Bible is very clear that we are to filter everything through God's eternal lens. And he has so graciously provided us answers to questions that, man, even before we had the questions, God had the answers. So the one book, the Bible, is reliable. And that's the theme this year. I want to encourage you to check out our friends over at BJU Press Homeschool. .com/culture-proof. It'll take you right to our landing page. You'll get to kind of meet our family and learn why we are super excited about the homeschooling curriculum that we trust to educate our 6 kids. So we're not just talking about our podcast partners. We are talking about our partners in the discipleship and the training of our kids. And we don't entrust that to just anyone. So check them out today, our friends over at bjupresshomeschool.com/culture-proof. When you check them out and follow that link, that'll be your way of letting them know that the Addisons sent you. Okay, Will the Great, let's get right into content and talking about some of these news headlines. I'm not even sure where we want to start. The one that I thought was really interesting is a story of this Memphis pastor who was shot at about 1:30 a.m. Outside of a local bar/restaurant.
Right.
This is really strange to me. I think what we could do is maybe run one of the local news clips just so that our viewers and our listeners can kind of get a little bit of background, a little bit of context, and then we can kind of come out of it talking about this. Again, this is in the category of like, why? Like, I mean, simply summed up, it's like, what is happening and like, how do you process this information? But we did pull a clip from one of the local news outlets there, and we'll run that for you. Take a listen.
A well-known Memphis pastor is dead after a shooting at a downtown restaurant. Memphis police responded to Mama's on Kentucky Avenue just before 1:30 this morning. When they arrived, that's when they found the man dead. Sources have confirmed that the victim is Pastor Ricky Floyd from the Pursuit of God Church. Our Scott Mattis is actually live right now where this all happened. Scott, this is a big story, impacts a lot of people in Memphis. What have you gathered and what can you tell us?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The pastor, Ricky Floyd, of course, has influenced so many people all across the city of Memphis, specifically in Frazier, where he, of course, was a pastor and had been a pastor for so many years. But this morning around 1:30, his life was tragically cut short. I'm going to step out of the way so you can see exactly where we are. Kentucky Avenue and Crump. This, of course, is where construction starts on the Memphis side of the Mississippi River. Mama's Bar and Kitchen is where it all went down. Memphis police responded to a shooting call this morning, like I said, just before 1:30 at the intersection of Kentucky and Crump, where investigators found Floyd deceased. Now, Floyd worked extensively in violence intervention and mentoring young boys with various nonprofits in the Frazier area and all across the city of Memphis. Memphis police have arrested 42-year-old Samantha Marion, and ABC 24 News has learned and confirmed that witnesses told investigators that the suspect, Marion, and the victim, Floyd, were in a verbal argument just before the shooting happened. Now, Marion has been charged with voluntary manslaughter after this shooting. Again, back out here live at the intersection of Kentucky Avenue and Crump at Mama's Bar and Kitchen. This is where it all went down tragically, where Ricky Floyd lost his life.
Man, that is so strange to me.
Yeah,
like I don't understand that. And as you read the news articles, and we have at least one in front of us, the local people seem to have a high regard for this pastor. Like, it seems that he did a lot in the community. Apparently was well known. And the church where he pastored seemed to have been well attended, meaning that there were a lot of congregants there. I'm just really confused about this, Will. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm confused as well. I know that there's more to the story, and so but it just seems that there's a lot of questions. You know, there's a lot of questions because, like, why is he out there at that time, 1:30 in the morning? You know, at a restaurant/bar. he has an altercation with this lady, and it seemed like there was a couple other people out there as
Mhm.
well, and it seems like he was pretty upset and mad and threw her phone. It just sounds very, very like there's more.
Yes,
There's
yes.
more, and I'm sure a lot will unfold. But man, it's sad, that he lost his life. He seemed like you said, it seems like he's very, very respected in the community. I don't know anything about the doctrine,
Mhm.
or the theology or whatever, how he taught or whatever. I'm not sure, but it seems like he was respected for doing things, trying to like help young men,
Yeah.
stay out of trouble and stuff like that. But he found himself being a victim of gun violence.
Yeah, the very thing that it seems it was a part of his mission, his
Yeah,
calling to sort of
yeah.
like protect young men from, especially in the Memphis area. I'm thinking about this because, our conference, we're going to be in this area. So you've got a community that is kind of reeling from this, as would be the case in any community. You'd be reeling
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the murder of a pastor.
yeah.
But I have to say, to the point that you're making in reading some of these other articles, there are just some questions that I think cannot be ignored. So
Right.
often we are tempted to make martyrs out of mere men, and we want to see things that are not there, but let's see the things that are there, right? And
Yeah.
so one of the things that I see is that you've got a married pastor
Mhm,
who is at a bar and restaurant
mhm.
after midnight, so about 1:30 in the morning he's there.
Yeah.
So those are some of the details that are out. You read these other articles, and another eyewitness on the scene who was involved in the verbal altercation says that, the woman who ultimately shot this pastor was approached by him after she was recording his license plate number as he drove away from Mama's bar and kitchen. Okay. Um, I've got questions about that. Like when
Yeah.
I read those
It's
details, I go, wait a minute, why was, and they say that he was irate. They say that he approached them. You read the articles, he approached them and he was irate and he was angry. And why did he approach them? Like
Mm.
what was going on? There are some people who believe that maybe these women were recording him,
Mhm,
and because there's also reports that he smashed one woman's phone on the scene.
mhm.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
I hopefully more information will come out. But there is one thing that I do know. I know that if there is something that is questionable, which I
Yeah.
think just the details as they are questionable. But if there's something that is deeply questionable,
Mhm,
I am certain, because I know the character of God. I know the
mhm,
character of God. I am certain that there were opportunities for this pastor to repent
mhm.
and walk away from any sin that was easily besetting him.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I know there's a lot more to this story, and I'm sure it will come out, and we'll be able to, know more. But just with the details that we have, it seems very, suspect. It
Yeah,
seems,
it's sketchy.
and,
It's just
and
very sketchy.
yeah, yeah, and maybe again, like you said, there were people who said that, you know, that she was recording him, and he got upset about that or whatever because he had left and came back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when he was walking toward, her, she may have been afraid. I don't know, but we will find out. And it's just a sad thing when you think about a pastor losing his life like this,
In this way.
in this way,
Yeah.
at that place. Like it's like, man,
At
it's
that
just
time of
at
morning.
that time of morning.
Yeah.
Those things are in my mind shouldn't be.
Yeah.
In my mind, it's like, no, he has no business being out there. And I don't know why he was there.
Yeah.
But in my mind, just listening to the details, just fresh off the story coming out, it's like,
Mhm.
it just
Yeah,
don't
no,
feel
and I
right.
think we have a responsibility as believers to tell the truth about what we know of
Yeah.
God's word. And I think we have to acknowledge all of those details and not pretend that they don't
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
And just reading a couple of the news stories, there are some people who are commenting under these stories saying that, he should have been reaching out to the community. He should have been in this place. Like people in bars need Jesus. Let me just say, though, if you are going to evangelize in bars, I would imagine that you'd go with a team. And
Mm.
if you're going to do that, I would imagine that maybe you'd have a cutoff time that you say, okay, we're packing up. We want to reach out to people and we want to meet people where they are. But most street witnessing practices involve a team of
Yeah,
people
it's
who are
true.
going out, and not a married pastor by himself at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
listen,
Yeah.
you're not going to convince me that I can't see what I see. All right.
Right.
I see what I see.
Right.
Want to move on to our next news story. But before
Mhm.
we do that, want to thank another one of our sponsors, We Heart Nutrition.
Mhm.
You deserve to feel better. You've put in a lot of years in that body. You've got, listen, people always want to ask you about the mileage on your
Oh
car.
my
What about the
goodness.
mileage on your body? You put a lot of years into your body. And honestly, because of sin and the fall, our bodies start to break down. I hate to say it, but it is just absolutely true. Well, you can replenish some of what has been lost as you've served the Lord for many years. We want to encourage you to check out our friends over at We Heart Nutrition. Every stage of life, it doesn't matter, where you are, your body needs the proper nutrition. And the facts are we're not getting it in the food we eat. So we need something to supplement our nutrition. And that's where We Heart Nutrition comes in. They've got potent supplements that are third-party tested. So you're getting the absolute best supplements into your body. Also, you can take their 30-second quiz and learn which supplements are going to work best for you. And then say you're taking those supplements for 60 days and you don't like what you see. You're not happy. Well, you can get a refund. They call it their Happy Heart Guarantee. 60 days. Try the supplements. If you don't like them, you'll get a 100% refund. I can tell you from experience, we can tell you from experience,
Yes.
you're not going to want your money back.
No.
You are going to notice a difference within weeks of taking the supplement. I am telling you that for a fact. And 10% of everything that goes into this Christian-owned and operated company goes right back out to support crisis pregnancy care centers all across this country. That is amazing. Check them out today. That's weheartnutrition.com. Use our promo code CULTUREPROOF and save 20%. CULTUREPROOF is the code. You can save 20%. Weheartnutrition.com is the website. Check them out today. All right. Will the Great, we
Yes.
lost one.
We lost
when
one.
when you start thinking about national treasures and you start thinking
Okay.
about people that, my goodness, we've lost a national treasure.
Oh my goodness.
You may not think of this person, but this person thinks of this person. Rosie O'Donnell moved to Ireland. Like, she was done with America. And she said, if she's not safe, if no one's safe, then she's leaving. And so under this administration, this Trump administration, she took her Irish lucky 3-leaf clover or four. What is the ones that's lucky? It's a 3-leaf clover. It's a 4-leaf clover.
4-leaf.
It's a 4-leaf
Yeah.
clover. She took her lucky 4-leaf clover. You see how much I know. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to offend my Irish brothers and sisters. Okay, please. I'm not trying to appropriate your culture.
Right.
All the things. But here's the thing. Rosie O'Donnell has left America, and don't wave because
Bye, Rosie.
she wants us to be sad about it. Here's
Really?
what she here's the post that she had, letting everyone know where she's been, because people were asking. Okay, people were like, where's Rosie?
What people?
Well, the people who love the Flintstones. People were like,
1994.
as you'll see. Listen, okay, let's just hear from Rosie. Okay, we need to have an opportunity to miss this dear woman. Here we go.
Rosie O'Donnell, star of the Flintstones. It's Tuesday all day, as my nan would say.
Wait.
And I'm here in Ireland. And it's beautiful and warm. Not physically, it's actually quite cold. Moved here on January 15th. And it's been pretty wonderful, I have to say.
For now.
The people are so loving and so kind, so welcoming. And I'm very grateful. In the process of getting my Irish citizenship, as I have Irish grandparents, and that's what's going on, and that's where I've been and what I've been doing. And although I was never someone who thought I would move to another country, that's what I decided would be the best for myself and my 12-year-old child.
Wow.
And here we are. Here we are.
That's wonderful
Here we are.
and incredibly sad that you've got a grown woman probably might be considered, looking back on her legacy, kind of surveying her life. And the legacy that Rosie O'Donnell wants to be associated with is the role that she played in 1994 in the Flintstones. Okay. Like, so here's Rosie. She just wants you to travel with her back to 1994. So in other words, if you are looking at Rosie O'Donnell and you're saying, oh my goodness, we have lost a national treasure. And then you're trying to search, you're going, what exactly have we lost? Like she wants you to remember that it's the Flintstones. Okay. She wants you to remember that time she played Betty. Okay. And she wants you to remember that she was the star. It's interesting that she says she was the star of the Flintstones. Like, nope, sit down, John Goodman. Okay. Even Halle Berry was in this movie. Look, just sit down. All of you people, you are irrelevant. It is all about Rosie O'Donnell, and she wants you guys to remember that. It's interesting to me that these people are like disruptors. They have a very bitter existence, and in part because they don't know Jesus, right? Like, you can't be fulfilled in your life if you don't know Jesus. And Rosie O'Donnell has spent a lot of her life, after coming out of the closet, she spent a lot of her life trying to be funny as a bitter woman, not truly being fulfilled, right? But trying to tell everyone that she is, and searching for that, and trying to have a pseudo family, a fake family, and trying to behave as a mother in sort of like a nuclear family, but experiencing turmoil and unrest, but then blaming that on a country that has been good to her, that has allowed her to have the kind of platform that she can point back to 1994's The Flintstones. Okay. One of the things that I did find interesting about this is that while Rosie is leaving, the Prime Minister of Ireland has no idea who she is. And President Trump is like, yeah. He's like, sorry. It kind of came up. I wouldn't think of this as, purely political, although Rosie would say that this is political. But even word of this reaches the White House. And this is what that sounded like. Listen.
Why in the world would you let Rosie O'Donnell move to Ireland? I think she's going to lower your happiness level.
That's true. Thank you. I like that question. Do you know you have Rosie O'Donnell? Do you know who she is? Do you know who she is? Yeah. You're better off not knowing.
It's President Trump and the Prime Minister of Ireland. Do you know that you have Rosie O'Donnell? Do you know who she is? You're better off not knowing.
Wow.
He says, you're better off not knowing.
Well, two things about Rosie O'Donnell. When I think of her, I think about her desecrating the national anthem. And, I mean, I'm like, what are you doing? And also, but
now I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I feel like I get into so much trouble. I get into so much trouble when I ask you a question, especially when it's a pop culture question. Was that Rosie O'Donnell? Or was it Roseanne Barr? Now, I don't know. Listen, there was a time. There was a time when I would have argued with you about this, but we will always remember
right
Denzel. Okay. Which one? Who was John Q? It was Denzel. And who did I think it was? I thought it was Will Smith.
Those people are the same to me. Rosie O'Donnell and Roseanne Barr.
So I need people to put in the comments. Put in the comments who was the one who was famous for desecrating the national anthem. I feel like it was Roseanne Barr.
Okay. They're the same person. Okay, no,
they are not.
Okay, they're
the
not.
same person.
They're not. Okay, you might be right about that. Because
they're very close.
Now I'm questioning that.
Okay,
but what I will say is I respect her.
Who?
Rosie O'Donnell.
Oh, why?
Because she left.
Oh, yeah. Because a lot of
all
the
these
stars
other
make
people,
promises.
Whoopi Goldberg and all.
Right.
They say they're going to leave. They're still here.
You are right.
I respect her. She said, she got out.
That's true.
She left. It wasn't. Look, she wasn't playing around. She's like, man, I'm getting out of here. I can't stand this. And she did what she said she was going to do. She's gone.
You are so right about that.
So I respect that.
Yeah, that's an excellent
point.
I wish
she would, invite some of her friends to come on to Ireland too.
But they all have different origin stories, right? Like she was just repatriating herself, like she was going back to her motherland.
Just go to Ireland. That's all. Whoopi, Ireland.
Oh wow, Whoopi's like no.
Yeah, go to Ireland.
She wants to anyway. Well,
we'll go to where? Where you want to go?
I mean,
the Caribbean, Africa.
One of those places. I wouldn't imagine that it would be Ireland. We've got, I'm sorry. Am I not allowed to just say that?
I mean,
Like, that's just the truth. Like, I just wouldn't imagine that she'd want to be
Rosie
making her
has
way.
paved the way. You know, she's gone before her.
And
Ellen.
Go
to where she went?
England,
France?
I think. What
Okay.
was it? France?
I don't know.
I don't
She
know.
went somewhere. See, she have friends in different places.
I've got friends.
Right.
Yeah.
She should go too. Why? Not only her. I know there's been some other people say, "Oh, you know, I'm leaving this country." If they're still here,
they didn't mean it. And so to that point, I respect her with you because she did carry out
did what she said
her mission of being in a free place, a place that is much better than the United States of America. So much better that you've got Rosie O'Donnell.
Okay. Rosie O'Donnell.
But yeah, she's in a place that's so much better, right? That it's like, hat in hand to the United States of America. So anyway, now to me is not the time that you'd be leaving this country right when we're getting our show of strength back. You know what I mean? Like this is
but that's not strength to her.
Truly.
Like that's,
you're right.
And to some other people, they feel like this country is going downhill.
Yes.
And President Trump, he knows her. Like,
you know
what I'm saying?
They go way back.
That's what I'm saying.
They have a little bit of a history.
She has her reasons for leaving, and a lot have to do with President Trump.
And it's personal. And President Trump knows that there have been some personal attacks, against her, and he has owned that, right? Just as what you saw in this meeting with the Irish Prime Minister. So he's not shying away from that. Want to move on to the next story? Michelle Obama has a new podcast out. And she has a new co-host.
Do something.
But it is right. That's not the name of the podcast. That's her speech.
It should have been Do Something.
You know what? That's actually a good name for a podcast. Now, I don't want her determining what we should do. Well, let's hold on to it. Let's see what we might be able to get out of that. Hold on, Michelle. No, stand down. Okay. You've already made your choice. Your podcast is named. All right. We might need to take that because we don't want people who don't fear God. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not talking about cultural Christians. I'm talking about people who really you don't want them telling people what to do. But it's interesting though, before we get into this podcast, I do want to make mention of another one of our sponsors.
Yes.
But I just will say, as we come back out of it, it is interesting to me that the co-host of Michelle Obama's new podcast is not Barack. Now,
why is that interesting to you?
Well, we can talk about it right after we talk about
rumors.
I am not into rumors, but I do read a lot of articles.
Those things floating around. I'm like, I don't know.
I read a lot of articles. That's all I'm going to say.
To Accountable to You.
Yes.
Is your smartphone a tool in the service of Christ, or is a minefield of distractions and temptations? And with soul-killing seductions just a few taps away, our families and churches must embrace biblical accountability on all our digital devices. Accountable to You makes transparency easy on all your family's devices by sharing app usage and detailed browsing history, including incognito mode, with your spouse, parent, or chosen accountability partner. Accountable to You helps your family to proactively guard against temptation so you can live with integrity for God's glory.
Amen.
Learn more and try it for free at accountable.com/cultureproof.
All right. So Michelle Obama is co-hosting a podcast with her brother, Craig Robinson. And it seems that over the years, we've kind of all been able to see that, Michelle Obama and her brother, Craig Robinson, are very close.
Yes.
But this particular podcast rollout is raising some eyebrows. Like, there are some people who are saying, we want to believe that everything is okay in Obamaville. Like, we want to believe that, but there have just been some consistent things where Michelle and Barack have seemed to present a disjointed or a divided front.
Really?
Just appearances and things like that. And then all of that considered, now you've got Michelle Obama under the media company that she and her husband started back in 2018, now rolling out this new podcast, IMO, which is, in my opinion. And I just want to play a couple of clips. I do have some thoughts about this. I'm not saying that all of this podcast or the understanding of it should be something that we should, read too much into. She's allowed to co-host a podcast with whoever she wants.
Yeah.
Right. I do question the timing of it in light of what appears to be great distance between Michelle Obama and her husband. Again, I think it's important to note that the platform hosting or the production company that's putting this podcast together is the company that she started with her husband. So it's not like, a totally independent venture, at least, as I've observed or read about.
Right.
But I would just imagine that, you're the former first lady and he was a sitting president for 2 terms.
Yeah.
If you're going to do a 1-2, you know what I mean? Like if you're going to host a podcast, that's going to be like, I don't know. I have my thoughts about why she would not want to host it with him. And it has nothing to do with divorce rumors.
But what if he just didn't want to do it? He might have been like, no. I'm not ready for that podcast role,
Let me be clear. I don't think that would be the case. I think it would be, I hate that I want to say this, but I think she would be in the position to say no. I don't think that he would be turning down an opportunity to work with his wife. So here's the thing. I think that when you look at her favorability numbers among like the voting blocks, right? Her numbers are really high. Way more than Barack Obama. Like you remember as they were pushing Kamala Harris and you remember Barack Obama basically just like beating up on these black men and saying that they have to show up. I think that was upsetting to Michelle because let's be honest, everybody except Barack Obama is aware of his background. Like everybody knows that, at least everybody except Barack Obama. It's like he's like a version of like the Truman Show. Everybody knows that he doesn't have the street cred that he thinks he has. Like everybody knows that his background and his history is not this sort of like, I don't feel no ways tired, Lord. But he wants everybody to think that he has that.
That was actually Hillary Clinton, but
was that him?
No, I'm just mad about Roseanne Barr. That's all.
Oh man, 24 Savage. Oh goodness, you just let me have it. Like that's fine. That is totally fine. I deserve that. I can take it.
No, Barack was amazing.
No, it was amazing. Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound. Oh goodness, I don't feel no ways tired. You're right. That was Hillary Nisha. Okay, goodness, I just get so tired of these people masquerading that it's hard for me to keep up with the personalities that they have, the multiple personalities that they have. But let's take a look though at Michelle Obama and her brother Craig.
Do something.
I'm waiting for them to do the one. I'm waiting for them to do "You Ain't Got to Lie," Craig. Like I hope that becomes a part of what they do with this podcast.
That would be funny.
Who am I?
That would be funny.
Okay, so
you just gave them my idea. They're probably gonna do that.
Well, that and the Do Something podcast.
There you go.
There probably is a podcast that already has that name,
Probably
title, and that's probably why they're not using it. But here, let's. I've got a couple clips that I wanted us to talk around because I have some thoughts about why she is co-hosting this podcast with her brother, and I think they kind of set that up in like the first episode. So first clip here is them kind of talking about why they would do a podcast. And then the second clip will be sort of them convincing you that this podcast is for you. Okay. So let's go with the first one, why they would do a podcast together. Here we go.
Podcast, first and foremost, gives us an opportunity to hear from folks. We're going to be taking questions from listeners who are going through some things and just need a little advice. They want to hear from people in conversations, and folks are looking for a place where they can just they can hear stories. I mean, what I realize is like by sharing some of these stories, it always taps into something from somebody else. People, they want to hear some honest kind of conversation about how people are working it through. And we don't have all the answers, I mean, this show isn't about us being experts at anything other than the lives that we've lived. But what we do have are a lot of opinions.
Hence the name.
In my opinion, IMO.
That's real cute. I love that.
At the same time.
So does it, yeah. we should do that. We should do like a "this is," and then both together say like "culture proof." Okay, yeah, that's great. I take that. Let's print it. Let's run with that. Okay, so now when you see that, I'm wondering, and I'm asking you to get into my brain here just for a second.
Ooh, I don't know
But
about
when you, hey, okay, when you see that clip, do you start to have a thought about why she would be co-hosting this podcast with her brother? Like based on how she shapes why they're doing this podcast and what like the scope of the podcast will be? Do
Well,
you have some thoughts about that?
there could, there could be many reasons,
Mhm.
but initially what I'm thinking is that she's trying to show herself to be authentic,
Yes.
whereas she may have felt like, with President Obama, it might have been a lack of
Boy,
authenticity.
you are on it. I'm
And
telling
so
you,
I'm
you
going
made it
back to
into
my
my
roots
brain.
with my brother.
Yes.
We're gonna talk
Oh
about
my
growing
goodness.
up, how we have a struggle.
Yes.
You
Okay.
know?
You made it.
Okay.
You made it into my brain.
Oh man.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Wow.
Now the
Success.
problem is going to be getting out because I got so many things stored up here that you may trip on boxes and bins
Oh man.
on the way out. But
Can I have a flashlight?
please.
I mean, man. Trying to navigate this.
Oh, that's the light of the Lord. Yes, yes, please. That's the only way. Anyway, no, but look, that's exactly what I thought. Like I thought Barack Obama is not on brand. Like if he co-hosts this podcast with her, he's not on brand. Like, and what is the brand here that they're going for, in my opinion? It's the regular everyday person who is sitting down and they're just exchanging stories. They're talking about ideas and concepts. They're talking about our shared struggles. And so Barack Obama is so unrelatable in that. Like he's not really on that level. And they have known this, right? And so what Michelle Obama is doing is exactly what we have always known. She is agreeing with the public that, yep, my husband is not believable. He's not authentic. At least I got that South Side girl. Like I'm really that person. And Barack Obama is not. In fact, I think her choosing to co-host this podcast with her brother is her way of distancing herself from that inauthenticity. You're going to have to edit that. You can't have me bumbling and mumbling when I'm talking about the Obamas. You're gonna have to cut that out. Fix it, Felix. I don't know. Inauthenticity. Look, I'm not from the South Side of Chicago, but I am from the West Bank of New Orleans.
That's right.
Okay,
So
and we
get a
choose
pass.
the
You
words
good.
that we want.
You good?
No, but I do. My assessment is that Barack Obama is not on brand. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they are divorcing. And in fact, can I just say this? We should not hope that they divorce.
No, man.
We should hope that they continue on with a solid presentation of Christ and the church. Like, because that is what marriage is. And it doesn't matter if people know that that is what it is. That is the picture.
Yeah.
Right? That marriage is a picture of Christ and his bride. So for the people who like on the conservative side are sort of like, chomping at the bit, grabbing their popcorn buckets, hoping that the Obamas divorce, I would say shame on you.
Right.
You should hope that whatever it is that has divided them, and if their marriage was a marriage of convenience and that has run its course, you should hope that they can reconcile and that they can work through that. I mean, I read so many headlines and it seems that conservatives are sort of like, we hope. Wow. That's sinful. That's wrong.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we are talking about two real people.
Yeah.
Like two real people.
You also got to understand that all conservatives are not Christians.
This is very true.
They may have those,
yes,
things that they're desiring to see. What would be funny is if President Obama came out with his own podcast.
With Jennifer Aniston. I'm sorry.
Called I'm Real. Or something
yes,
like that. with Jennifer Aniston. I know that's one of the
things, guys. That's one of the things. I don't know. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. It's like right as I come out of saying something that is life-giving and good, then that is petty. Okay. So again, edit that out. I will be better if by growth in the Lord or editing. I'm just kidding.
I didn't really even know they were like friends like that. But anyway.
Oh, I probably read too many news headlines, and there are certain things that you start to read with consistency and you think people aren't just making this up.
Yeah.
So I don't know that is reality, but those are some of the headlines, that there was a rumored relationship between Barack Obama and Jennifer Aniston. And she has done some things to attempt to say that that's not true. Jennifer Aniston has, but we don't know. So getting back to my thought about IMO, right? Because she's already slated. She's going to have high profile guests on. I saw like a trailer for some of the guests that are going to be joining her.
She could, like, she's
well, she
Michelle Obama.
commands that. Yeah, she commands high profile guests. But I think she's going to have to put in the work. And I think she's aware of this. Her production team, I think they're aware of this, that she is going to have to sell herself to be in the category that she wants to be in. And the category that I think she wants to be in is one of relatability. Relatability. Man, can you tell you get to the end of the week and you're like, it's Friday and you want to quit.
Words.
You just want to quit talking. It's like you want the brain to just go on hiatus. It's that. Can I also say this? Not that I'm trying to like draw in a bunch of empathy, but I do want to say that we are without gas in our family. It's true. It is so true.
Oh.
And we have a gas water heater. So, cold water all day until, and so people are like, man, we need to support Culture Proof. They don't have gas in there. That's not the reason.
Right.
Okay. We don't have gas because there was an explosion. There was an explosion at our local gas plant or gas
what's funny about that
distributor. I don't know.
And not funny, but so I saw a live that the Atmos gas people did, and they were trying to explain what happened, and they kept saying it was not an explosion like was reported.
Okay.
They called it like a something like a blowout. I'm like, come on, man, that was an explosion. Why y'all trying to?
Why does it matter? Like, why would
like, I don't know. Maybe they feel like because it seemed like what happened was, of course it was accidental. Like it was somebody messed up or whatever. But it was being reported that it was an explosion.
Right.
But
people
they would come back and say, no,
like
it wasn't an explosion. It was like a something blowout, a little something. I'm like, come on now. Are you trying to save face by saying it was a blowout? A blowout sounds, and all these people without gas. I mean, it's amazing to me how they try to cover that. But it's like, I know people are listening to that and like, what are y'all talking about?
Yeah, a blowout sounds like what happens in a newborn baby's diaper. It's like, do you remember your newborn babies, especially like those that were nursed? It's like very, and so you're like, oh man, what's that up his back? Like you look at the little onesie, and it always has like this little mustard peeking over the top. You're like, what is that? And what does the parent always say? The parent's like, oh, he had a blowout.
Yeah,
like it's like so like a blowout doesn't affect thousands of people and their ability to take hot showers. Like that's right. Blowout doesn't do that. An explosion might though. I just want to say, Atmos.
Come on.
I'm looking at you. So here's my point. My point is this. The reason I'm fumbling over all of my words for this weekend news call is because for the last like 24 to 48 hours, I have been living like a frontier woman. I've been warming up water, running with fresh linens, and looking for tourniquets. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't even know what that is.
It's there's no hope. Okay, guys, there's no hope. Even as I try to redeem this podcast episode, there is no hope. Okay. It's the
tourniquets
thing.
In New Orleans.
Oh man. Well, we should, because fooling around with a lot of the criminal element. You need to stop the flow of blood whenever you can. It's the thing that you put on to like stop, like cut off the flow if you're gonna have to like a tournament, right? Like, isn't that right?
Right.
I hope I'm right about that. That's what I thought it was.
Grab the rag. I mean,
yes. Well, anyway, that's what I've been doing for the last 48 hours. I've been helping young kids, bathe by way of transporting hot water. So feel bad for me.
Yes,
okay. Look at, but I will say this.
Yes.
I have thought that I could have made it as a frontier woman. Like I think I could have done it. And because I've looked at some of the stories and, there was a time where I would have been like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this. But I look at me, boiling this water and being, just keeping hot water on the stove and walking and taking it back and holding those pots between my, oh, I'm sorry. That's Kung Fu Legends. That's not me. That wasn't me. I didn't do that. Anyway, all of that is neither here nor there. We are without gas, but it's not because we're not well supplied for. Okay. It is because there was a blowout.
A blowout. Come on, people. Come on. Atmos, I'm looking at you.
There's a blowout at our local gas station. Anyway, the bigger question is, when will gas be restored? I mean,
Yes.
even our local weather guy was blogging about this, doing a video blog that he's headed over to a friend's house to take a shower.
Yeah.
We've been offered to go over to some friends' homes to take showers, but like, I just don't want to bring my covered wagon over there and get all my youngin' down and get them out and rustled up and walk through people's houses soaking wet. I just don't want to do it. So until it gets really bad, I'm sorry, because I just feel like if I'm listening to this, I'm going, well, Miki, when will it be really bad? Like when the boiled water is not doing what it needs to do. Like if we start to get to a place where it's like, that's not an effective wash.
Oh man.
Then we will go to friends' homes, but we can rough it just for a little bit. You know what I mean? As I understand it, we're supposed to have gas back on Monday.
Well.
If you listen to a podcast episode and you start to smell it, I'm just kidding.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
just kidding. I will say this though.
rails.
Because we got one more story to get to. I will say this. The thing or the person,
Yes.
I think, that's going to be the controlling factor for whether or not we go to friends' homes or a friend's home, is going to be the 15-year-old son. Okay.
Yes.
If he starts to offend me walking around our home, that's it. That's it. We're knocking on doors. We're going to find who has gas and who
They may
doesn't.
not let us in after that.
And
They'd be like, oh no.
Or they might. They may open the door before we knock. And man, we smelled you guys. We smelled y'all a long way off. It's like a different type of prodigal son. It's like, I smelled you in my spirit. And then they just let us in. All right. So back to Michelle Obama and her brother Craig. They are co-hosting this podcast. I think they are trying to rebrand themselves and get back to
Craig. He's cool. He don't have to rebrand himself.
No, he doesn't. But I think just being associated with the Obamas,
he's helping her.
Yes, he is. He is helping her. I will say though that he is in a category of elites. He is, right? And I think they are going to have to work to convince you that they're just like you and me. And they're not. Like they're not. And so my proof is the way that they opened the first podcast episode. They spend the first like literally 5 to 7 minutes, and we're not going to play all of that. We'll play a little bit of it, but they spend the like 5 to 7 minutes of the podcast trying to convince you that they are Shelly and Cray Cray from the block. Like it's like Shelly O and Cray Rob from the block here with their podcast. They are just like you and me. And here's what that sounds like. Listen.
I'm Craig Robinson, and you all know my sister, Michelle Obama, and we're doing this podcast together, and it's really exciting to be working with you on this project.
You know, some people react like, you're doing a podcast with your brother?
Why would you do that?
I know, really. But our dynamic is so, in my view, unique. I think there are plenty of siblings who have great relationships. But, you know, I think when we think back to where that came from, I think about just the physical closeness that we.
Pause for a second. Let me just say this. Okay. If I'm going to talk about why I'm hosting a podcast with my brother, and people might think it's strange, and this is where the production team, like, guys, you know, we caught you slipping, okay? So you don't want her to talk about physical closeness to her brother and talking about why she's hosting a podcast with her brother when people might expect that she would be hosting a podcast with her husband, okay? Now, she's going to go on and she's going to explain this. But I think the words that you would want to use in this moment, and I'm being so serious, in this moment, the words that you'd want to use is you'd want to use proximity. We grew up really close, and eventually they get there, but you don't want to talk about physical closeness as a motivation for doing a podcast with your brother. Do you understand? It's just, there's something about it that just doesn't sound right. And
it didn't sound,
I just wish that, you know, anyway. All right, here we go. Let's go back to the clip here. Michelle and Cray Cray.
We had, I mean, we weren't wealthy.
Right.
And Dad was working class. We lived in the same apartment our whole lives and had to grow into that. And as a result, you and me, we were physically close growing up.
Remember when we used to share a bedroom?
Of course, that was our life growing
So
up.
much about this is cringe.
Yes.
We shared the same room until you went to high school, right?
That's right.
Well, let's first just recall how small the
Yeah.
apartment we lived in. You know, it seemed like it was huge, but it was essentially 2 bedrooms, right?
No, it was 1 bedroom.
Well,
It just hold on, guys.
Man,
it just keeps
how
getting
poor
worse
can
and
you
worse. Like
get?
seriously, I'm like, please invite me on as a
It's like
guest.
a competition.
Please invite me on as a guest because I want to outdo you guys in poverty. I really do. I want to
Man.
outdo you guys in poverty, and I don't want to talk about the multi-millions of dollars that you have now because I understand you're trying to get your street cred back.
Mhm.
But like this is so uncomfortable to listen to
Man.
because what they are trying to do, it's like, man, I was so poor. How poor were you?
Right.
I was so poor that me and Cray Cray shared a room until he was in high school. In fact, and then as you're going to hear Cray, it actually wasn't a bedroom. It was a living room that they turned into listen, good times just called.
Right.
They're like, you stole our storyline.
Right.
The only thing that they're not saying is that they slept on a sofa bed.
Mm.
All right. Because if they would say that, then they would be JJ Evans. But
Right.
again, this is a rebranding of Michelle Obama. Now, I don't know if this, she will kind of parlay this into like a political position. It seems to me she's not interested in that. It seems that she wants to maintain the heft and the weight of her name or any future endorsement, right? Without being overtly in some sort of political office. I think she wants the clout and the name respect without being dirtied up in the political arena. Do you know what I mean? Like not having to defend actual policies and all of those things. I think she just wants to continue to be able to push an agenda. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't be surprised though if the pressure was put on and she did, run for something like president or whatever. I thought she would do that already by now, But maybe you're right that she enjoys the power that she has, the name, the influence, and not to be dirtied up by politics, would be a good thing to her. So I think you might be right about that. But I would not be surprised if she ran for president, vice president, whatever.
You think so? I don't know. I just don't think she's going to do it.
And maybe she would have done it by now, but I don't know. I just feel like because when you get into those political seasons and all those people start crying out how much they love this, it seemed like, that might get to her one day, be like, man, I'm gonna go ahead and
Excuse me. I was watching some CNN analysts talk about the fact, or not the fact, their opinion that she's not relevant in the political arena. And even that her husband is not relevant in the political arena because they were talking about how they really brought out all the heavy artillery for Kamala Harris and she didn't win,
That's true.
So they were suggesting that she's not relevant in the political arena and maybe, maybe her husband isn't either. If that's true, if you want to maintain some kind of relevance and even rebuild your relevance, then you're going to have to make sure to associate with the lowly. You're going to have to be a woman of the people because I think that's what they were trying to get Kamala Harris to do. Remember, I'm so poor.
Right. But I think Kamala Harris was such a bad candidate that they couldn't even push her over the top.
Which is horrible to think about.
And then I think President Trump was such a force. Like it was hard for the I don't know. I think she may. I wouldn't be surprised if she did, but I can see all the reasons why she would not run for office. I can see those reasons.
Maybe so. I don't know. I mean, we'll just have to watch. I do believe, though, that this podcast is an attempt to kind of like rebuild a certain type of image. You know what I mean? I think it's an attempt to kind of say, I'm a woman of the people. Here I am, Shelly and Cray Cray. Like here we are hanging out with you. And we just so happen that we're going to get to talk to some very high profile people and bring in their perspectives. But you should know that is not because we grew up like this. Okay. Which is such the argument of like many people who are accused of having privilege. They're just like, but no, I worked hard for this. And they're like, we don't care. We don't care how hard you work. And so like, here is, Obama and Robinson, they are saying we didn't grow up like this, but like, here we are, living the dream. And we're supposed to just pretend like that's okay for them. That's okay. Which to me is another display of elitism, that you get to be wealthy without anyone judging your wealth because you grew up poor.
Mm.
So you get to tell us how to think about your wealth. Anyway. All right. Last story. And before we get to that, I want to mention our final sponsor, and that is Forever Written. Our friends Ken and Camilla craft incredible art that's going to fill your home with the beauty of God's word. Do you have a scripture that has been significant to you for a long time, or maybe at like one of the lowest points in your life, there was a passage that the Lord used to really draw you back to truth, to draw you to himself, and maybe you never want to forget it. You would love to have it beautifully displayed on the walls of your home. You should check our friends out at Forever Written. That is exactly what they do. You can visit their website and find something already existing there that you want to order, or you can customize a piece that you are going to love. You can bring faith into focus and fill your heart with his word and transform your place today by contacting our friends at foreverwritten.com. That's forever-written.com. Timeless truth, beautifully displayed. Visit our friends, Ken and Camilla, at forever-written.com. All right. So Steve Lawson has broken his silence and has released a statement out on X where he is acknowledging and taking full responsibility for his sin just 6 months ago. And I have to say that this is the kind of response that I think should take place in the body of Christ. I think when a person sins in a public capacity where you have, been in the lives of people that you don't know them directly, you don't touch their hands, in a physical sense, you're not putting an arm around their shoulder, but they have been touched by your ministry because you've been blessed with a platform as Steve Lawson was blessed. I think this is the response that you are supposed to come out, and you're supposed to acknowledge that, yes, you agree with God that what you did was sin against him, but that you also sinned against the members of the Lord's bride, that there was a wrong there, that you lied for years in a relationship with someone who was not your wife, that it was a life of contradiction, presenting a false face to people that you were pastoring and training in the faith, and even as ministers. So I think that his response is right.
Definitely. It does no good to like hide and try to downplay what was done, when all the stuff has come out, so I think being forthright and saying, hey, this is what it is, and I repent, and that's definitely the move. That's what you should do. That's the biblical thing to do. That's the right thing to do, as it concerns being a part of the body of Christ. And so, yes, I'm glad that his statement has come out, and that he clearly has understood what he's done, and man, because you have people trying to hide this type of stuff or try to cover it over, and I respect that part of it. It's sad that this happens, and it's like, man, we are getting worn out of talking about things like this. But I'm glad it's being handled like it's being handled. I'm glad he's under church discipline. Like, this is how it's supposed to be, and I don't know, like, I'm thinking about Pastor Tony Evans. I'm not sure exactly all the details of but he has not been, in my opinion, open, to the public about, what's going on and what's going on now. It's just kind of like, it's just out there like, hey, this happened, this thing is kind of vague, and so I do,
and nobody really knows,
right? Nobody really knows, and I appreciate Steve Lawson and what how he's allowing this to be handled in his life, as being a public figure.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is the statement that was over on X. It says, "It's with a shattered heart that I write this letter. I've sinned grievously against the Lord, against my wife, my family, and against countless numbers of you by having a sinful relationship with a woman, not my wife. I am deeply broken that I have betrayed and deceived my wife, devastated my children, brought shame to the name of Christ, reproach upon his church, and harm to many ministries. I just want to
Wow.
say right out of the gate, that is exactly the tone and the weight
Right.
that I think is required of this
I
moment.
agree.
And look, I don't know a lot about Steve Lawson. I know that he was significant or is significant to so many people, but I've got to say, I respect him. I respect the tone that he's taken. I even respect his sitting under counsel that he should wait for a little bit, like not just jump right back out there, you know, on your platform talking to people, like let the weight of the discipline take its course. And he's still undergoing that discipline, but I love this. I think he strikes the right tone immediately. And then continuing with his statement, he says, "You may wonder why I've been silent and largely invisible since the news of my sin became known. I have needed the time to search my own soul to determine that my repentance is real." To determine that my repentance is real. I alone am responsible for my sin. I have confessed my sin to the Lord, to my wife and my family, and have repented of it. I have spent the past months searching my heart to discover the roots of my sin and mortifying them by the grace of God. I hate my sin, weep over my sin, and have turned from it. My sin carries enormous consequences, and I will be living with those for the rest of my life. He continues, "Over the years, many have looked to me for spiritual guidance, and I have failed you. I beg your forgiveness. I have been undergoing extensive counseling for the last 5 months to face the hard questions I need to address. I've dealt with sin issues that have been painfully exposed in my heart. I've submitted myself in a weekly accountability to 2 pastors and to elders of a local congregation who have shepherded my soul. I am also under the oversight of an accountability team who monitor my progress and give me wise counsel in the decisions I have to make. I'm growing in grace, reading and absorbing the word of God, putting it into practice, praying and meeting with other believers. I'm involved in the life of the church, attending and participating in prayer meetings, Sunday school, the worship service, and taking communion weekly. I'm being fed the word in the midweek Bible study. Please pray for my spiritual growth into Christ-likeness as I follow him moment by moment during this recovery season." And then he kind of concludes, but I think we can stop. Well, one other part I do want to include, because he asks for prayer, right? Like, and it's not just this, like, pray for me during these private moments or pray for me as I request privacy. Like that, it's not that. It is, please pray for the Lord's mercy and grace as I seek to make right the deeply wrong sins I've committed against my wife and family, and that in his time and way, he will bring about redemption and restoration in our marriage for his glory. And he signs it, Steve Lawson. Look, I don't know, but sincerity matters.
Yeah.
And I think even in the body of Christ, we have been so harmed by people's abuse of their position, so harmed by people's abuse, as pastors and leaders. But I think when a person comes out and they strike the right tone, which is to agree with God that our sin is utterly sinful, not to try to cover it, not to present an excuse, to take responsibility and to repent, and to recognize that other people, onlookers, are also, like, you had a public ministry.
Yeah.
So people are not being catty to say, well, what happened?
Right.
Like, people are curious to know what happened. I think they have a right to that. I like the tone that he strikes here.
I agree. I like the tone as well. And it's sobering. It's sobering, but I feel a sense of I guess you would say joy too, because I feel like he's in a place where he needs to be.
Yeah.
As far as on the road to restoration and being, and I do hope and pray that him and his wife and their marriage are strengthened, as time goes on, because I know something like this is very deeply hurtful, and so I love the tone of this, and I feel like it's sobering, it's serious, man, it is a recognition of what was done. There's no trying to, shift the blame or anything else or anyone else. I really appreciate, this comment that
Me
he's
too.
made, and man, I pray that even him going through this so publicly, it will cause all of us as believers, but
Mm-hmm.
specifically, us as elders and ministers, man, to take heed to ourselves.
Yeah.
And the Apostle Paul said that, you take heed to yourself lest you fall. These things are not something to look at and say and point the finger and it's like, man, there's an element of looking inward and saying, okay, man, where am I?
Mm-hmm.
Where am I? Is there a hook anywhere in me?
Yeah.
And I think this is a great opportunity for that as well.
Well, I think that's a great place for us to leave the weekend news haul, catching up on some of these stories. There's some other news stories that we did not incorporate this weekend.
Mhm.
Maybe that's going to be a longer podcast, sort of like unpack, or maybe a live.
Maybe a
Maybe
live. I think so.
To join us for that. When we resist those cultural trends that rival the truth, we remain culture proof. Until next time, Lord willing.
God bless.